Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Today I want to discuss whether or not the West, as the Western world, is falling apart. In general terms, conservatives, Christians, Muslims, the global South, everyone, Russia, China, everyone's looking at the Western world as it sort of crumbles due to its own contradictions with their ideology, with their economy and the issues. With military problems. You can see the slow kind of decline even in the US dollar and things like that, which tend to sort of go in a direction where, okay, in a couple of years, the Western world will not be as powerful as it used to be. And people are very happy about this. So if you read news or if you watch YouTube videos of some people, if you just are online, you see the decline of the West, and you always see these pictures of like completely disgusting cities in the US or Europe, crime rates, complete destruction. So, and then you see like gay people everywhere. So in your mind, maybe if you don't live in the West, or maybe if you do but you don't really engage with the external society, you're like, man, this is like a mess, like it's over for England. And I have a friend who just moved here from Egypt, and he told me like, the UK is over, it's done. Like, you've never been there, right? You just watched YouTube videos. Like, people read news about Slovakia, it's so difficult and things like that. It's quite easy life here. It's important to go to these places and to actually understand what's happening on the ground. And actually, in a nutshell, it's really beautiful in the UK. Of course, there's knife crime and all these issues. But when I was in London, and I've been in London at like 2 a.m. in like Finsbury Park. And it's full of people, and it's like, yeah, it's dodgy, but you can blend in and be fine. I don't agree with the overall trajectory. I don't think multiculturalism works in those societies. So I do think these societies are more unstable, they are more insecure because of mass migration. I mean, that's what happened. And then you see these YouTube videos of people who are like filming the trash in Birmingham or something, and just the Hindus on the streets, and you see all these Muslim stores like, is this the UK? And I agree with that sentiment. Like, that's not the UK. But okay, it's the UK now. You gotta deal with it. The thing is, it's not that bad. Even if the West crumbles, even if the US dollar goes down, even if the military bases will be shut down all over the world, let's say, and the US will just isolate themselves, and Europe or whatever is gonna happen, it's still gonna be powerful. It's still gonna be the most powerful region in the world, even in decline. You have to realize, just by the purchasing power, just by GDP, just by the global financial system, it's not reversible because of the structural issues within the system. So the other regions can never catch up to the West. It would be sort of only possible if you would like completely destroy the infrastructure that the West is built upon. So for this to occur, you would actually need like a flat out, not just a war, you would have to have a world war. And any world war will lead to nuclear weapons, which will lead to human extinction. So it's not possible to have a world war, because nowadays everyone has nuclear weapons. So the world war would actually mean everyone's dead. Everyone, doesn't matter where you are. So no one's gonna do that in their right mind. No one's gonna go there. And I know it's been developed on the back of colonization and things like that. And that's true as well. Like, I'm not denying these things. I'm just saying you cannot avoid the reality. The number of nuclear weapons the West has is the most, almost like Russia. Russia has maybe more. And I'm also agreeing with people who are saying the West is declining in economy. It's true. The West is declining in morality. It's true. The birth rates are plummeting. It's true. The society is not built on like communities. That's true. All these things are eradicated. People generally, they love to hate the West. And I get that. I used to feel like it as well. Like, hey, these people are better. Why do they think they are better? Why do Germans think they're better than Slovaks? Why is that? Well, they are better. Let's deal with it, Jan. Germans are more better than Slovaks. In some sense, you have to be able to admit some people are better than you. I have no problem saying Germans are better in engineering than Slovaks. Germans are better in innovations than Slovaks. I think British people are more sophisticated than Slovaks. I'm putting myself down as a Slovak. To understand that yes, you do have shortcomings as your country's people or whatever you are. What you are, I don't know. But I'm saying British people are more sophisticated because we are more village people. So there's all these things, but then something is better here. But if you just watch these content and the YouTube videos, and if you watch especially the conservatives and the right-wing people who just kind of like hate the West and they love Russia for some weird reason, and I understand their sentiment, but they just kind of like say, oh, New York is falling apart and Moscow is amazing. Is it? Okay, maybe, yes, the sanctions didn't work and Russia is doing well economically. That's true, maybe. But there are neighborhoods in Moscow where you wouldn't want to go. There are things in Russia which you would see, people don't have toilets in Russia in some villages. People are wiped drunk in some villages. So you have the fentanyl epidemic in the US. They've been doing that in Russia for decades with other drugs. So don't come here and say like Russia is the best, US is evil. This is like, no country is perfect. I lived in the US for 1 year. It's generally cleaner than Russia. It's generally cleaner. That means, for example, if you go and you see the roads, they are much better. If you see the paths, the cities, they are much better. People cut grass. People in Russia don't cut grass. There's more homeless people in the US, for example, than Russia. I think that's also true. And now it's getting so absurd that the American comedians and conservatives are actually watching Slovak Prime Minister with Macron, where he said like, okay, Ukraine is, it's possible our soldiers will fight in Ukraine, and our Prime Minister is sort of put on a pedestal as like this anti-Western leader, and he's like cool, like the Hungarian. Guys, this is such a fake facade. Like, if you knew anything about this guy, who is our Prime Minister, subhanallah, 20, 30 years in politics, he's done so many things. It's impossible to I actually wrote like my master thesis on his political party and how corrupt it is. When I see like people making heroes out of these like super corrupt leaders like Putin or our prime minister, I'm like, wow, now it's like so weird. If you put these people as like role models, I can see like, okay, it's gotten so bad with the liberals that they put these like guys on the pedestal, which is so strange. The people who don't like the Western world or don't like the Western order, which I don't like it. I don't like the Riba system. I don't like the military complex. I don't like all these things. I don't like the farm. I don't like all of that. People who don't like it, it's not just Muslims. There's communists, there's Chinese, there's all these people who want to change the world. And so if you ally with these guys, with let's say the Russians or Chinese, and you bring down, let's say the Russia rises and it challenges the West, it wins the war in Ukraine, and now the international order is reversed, blah, blah, blah. Do you think they do it? Do you think this benefits the Muslims? There's a lot of Muslims in Ukraine who have much more freedom than in Russia. And I know personally a lot of people who have been to Ramadan in Ukraine, and and people in Ukraine have much better conditions, especially because it's a native population like the Tatars and all that. In Russia, the Islamic state control, muftis and all that, it's state controlled. You think it's free? You think you will be able to open a mosque, Yan, in Russia? No way. They would shut me down immediately. I live in the West, I could open my mosque, even though it's banned in Slovakia to open a mosque, but I could open a prayer room, let's say. Do you think that would be possible in Russia? Do you know how these countries operate? They don't have this like process that you have in the West where they send you the formal letter, they just come kick you out. And so if you want that to replace your current system, it's still not good. Like you're replacing something bad with something also bad. What is the correct system? Now here's the question: what is the correct system? What should we do as Muslims if we know the West is not gonna fall apart, because that's impossible, and the East is not the answer? The Russia, China, or India, or whatever you want to call these BRICS, or whoever is gonna replace the current US dominance, is never gonna dominate the full world. It's gonna just dominate like parts of the world. So there's going to be a multipolar world. Okay, fine. I'm fine with multipolar world. We don't need the hegemony of the US. It's done a lot of killing. And yeah, it's like horrible. All the wars they did in the past have turned, like, it backfired. The Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Libya, none of that is good. Everything went to like nothing. And there's going to be multipolar world. There's going to be Chinese. There's going to be Russian. There's going to be like the West. And the middle part, the Middle East and all this, is free for grabbing. Who's gonna take that? Because the Muslims are so disunited. It's laughable, to be honest. Like, you have this power, and it's like there's almost billion Muslims, and no one's taking the leadership. There's nothing. Where all the governments are just basically, not all. I don't want to go into that, but there's not a caliphate. There's not like one ruler you can pledge allegiance to. There's countries, and none of the countries is like strong. There's no like regional power who can take and become like the spokesperson of the Muslims. That doesn't exist. It's such a shame, because all these Muslim countries will become part of like Russian or Chinese influence, or they'll become a westernized countries. And subhanallah, what is the answer? What is the answer to this globally, like thinking on high level? Do you think you can ally with China and be okay, or with Russia and all that? Do you think that's good for Muslims? We live in the West, you have the same thing. Do you think Muslims are good under the West? Yeah, it's okay, but it's not the best. We can't practice our deen to the fullest. There's a limit. So in China, do you think there won't be a limit? There will be a limit. There will be a limit. In Russia, there will be a limit. There is a limit. So you're switching and you're looking for someone to help you. That's such a bad mindset, bro. Do you think they don't have the propaganda? There's no Chinese propaganda? There's no Russian propaganda? Of course there is. There's the Western propaganda as well. All of that is propaganda. When you hear, oh, this is great about China, is it? Is it great? We all live in different countries. We all are spread around the world. You live in the West. I live in like the border of the West. I don't know what this is, Slovakia. Is it the West or East? There's no way to tell. Politically, we're the West. But look, I'm just going to build my masjid here. We're going to build a community. SubhanAllah, we had some people do the hijrah, make hijrah. We've grown to 25, 30 members. We're going to grow to 100, inshallah. Then I have a family, and I'm going to do grassroots work. I'm going to bring people into Islam, and we're going to do it based on the Quran and Sunnah, and SubhanAllah, we'll see how it goes. But I'm never going to kind of ally with the Western world or the Eastern world or none of that, because I know that's not the answer. Why do I know that? Because I study the Aqidah and I know the answer is there. The answer is in the Quran. What does Allah say? The Russians or Chinese hate you more than the Western people, or at a similar level. They hate your Ramadan and all this stuff. You think they like it? You think the Christians love that? I have my family, the entire family is Christian. Do you think they love it? They don't love it. They will never love it. Why? Because it says in the Quran, the Christians and Jews will never accept you. You stand alone as a Muslim. It's so hard to do, but this is the truth. So until we unite, we cannot do anything, and this is the answer. Just start locally, do whatever you can, and just live your life. At some point, this will come, and just don't be that naive that some system will replace the current system. It's gonna be better. It can be actually much worse than what it actually is. Like, we have it pretty good in the West. Even though it's difficult to get the halal meat, everything is like decaying morality, but you can live freely, you can pray, you can fast Ramadan, you can do all your things you want. We stand alone, but that doesn't mean we can't participate in society. We do good, and we forbid evil, and we help people in society, wherever we are. We pay the tax to the government. So I want to end this video with a quote or a lecture. And I don't know how you feel about Abu Hanifa, but I've been studying Al-Fiqh Al-Akbar, which is his book on Aqidah, and you just have to understand this concept that let's look at the reality. What is the reality? We are a creation. There's a creator, Allah. So help will come only from Allah. It doesn't come from other people. So how does that work? So Abu Hanifa says in his Al-Fiqh Al-Akbar, I'll translate to English. All actions of the creation of Allah, whether motion or standstill, are truly acquired by them. What does this mean? Let me say. Yet Allah is their creator. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creates your actions. Me doing this, Allah has created this action. I did not create it. What does it mean that I acquired this action? Well, if you create something, if you create action, that means you created something from non-existence to existence. And I haven't done that, because creating means I can know about this thing that I have done from non-existence to existence. For example, I'm doing this. How am I moving these muscles? How many cells do I have in my fingers? I have no idea about that. I have the ability to do that, But I don't actually know what's going on internally with these things, so I haven't created that action. All of the actions of the servants or people or whoever, the creation, are executed by Allah's will, knowledge, ruling, and decree. That means that, for example, my power and will are linked to my actions. So my power and my will is linked to my action, but it is not the action itself. But I am acquiring the action that Allah has created for me. We don't create our own actions. So you have to also understand the difference between the will of Allah and His command. The will of Allah is also to will evil, but the command of Allah is not to do evil. We have to have complete belief and complete surrenderness to Allah's command and Allah's will, because nothing moves in this world without Allah's will. Allah knows about everything, every little tiny speck on the floor, Allah knows about it. So once you understand this, then you have to understand Allah knows about all these things. So our job is quite simple actually. Wherever you are, just surrender your will to Allah's will and follow the Quran, follow the Sunnah, and do whatever you want, but just follow it and just try to stick with it. And try to implement your deen to the highest potential, to the highest level. Don't just be a regular Muslim. Don't just be a Muslim who just does his main things. Go further and further and further, because the more further you will go, oh man, this dunya will fall on your knees. Because we know Allah promises in the Quran, if you make one step to Him, He will run to you. And is it the hadith? But anyways, there's so many promises, like if you spend this much money for Allah, He will give you more. If you do this for Allah, if you do this for Islam, if you learn about Islam, if you spend time on learning about your deen, He will do more for you. So there's this like, it's illogical for us to think like that, but it's like this. This is how Allah works. So just do it. But we don't want to, but this is the message. Just do it. Submit to Allah and His Messenger, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And I don't know, this video is just my ramblings. So thank you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And maybe we'll catch up in the next video. See you.